This is the all-new 2020 Toyota Camry TRD. Toyota has received so much positive feedback on its TRD lineup of pickup trucks, it's decided to branch the TRD name out to its nameplate sedans, like Camry. So we're here at Texas Motor Speedway to see what the new Camry TRD is all about. So, looking at the Camry TRD, the biggest appearance difference is obviously the inclusion of the TRD body kit, which includes a front splitter, side skirts, a new rear diffuser, a TRD exhaust, and of course, the wing. Toyota offers a Camry with a big rear spoiler. How cool is that? Under the hood of the TRD is the brand's ubiquitous 3.5-liter V6 engine, which is unchanged from the standard Camry XSE. Now, Toyota claims they're serious about this TRD Camry having good handling dynamics, and to prove it, they invited me to actually autocross this very car. So, let's see what happens. Alright, so I am now autocrossing a standard Camry XSE. So it has the same V6 engine as the TRD model, but the standard suspension, the standard wheels and tires, the not fancy brakes, and the no aero. Granted, the aero isn't really going to make any sort of difference on an autocross course, other than looking cool. But still, let's see what the standard V6 car has. Honestly, it's not that bad. The transmission's a little bit laggy and it's definitely pushy. Definitely pushy. Well, this car weighs about 3,570 pounds, according to Toyota. This is not exactly a lightweight car, and being front-wheel drive, all that mass is over the front tires, basically. Oh yeah, it's pushy. It's very pushy. There, put the transmission in sport, so it doesn't seem to quite do as many weird things. Alright. Alright, the transmission is sport. That is much better. Alright. Ooh, good agility. You see that transition right there? That is a nice transition because that was a really tight kind of offset space between those two gates. Honestly, this car is really soft, which you'd expect from a Camry. But dynamically, it hangs on pretty well. It does seem like the biggest limitation is actually the tires, which is not uncommon for just about any car. Yeah, see, the front end response, it really washes out there on the bigger transitions. And part of that's the softer suspension, which you'd expect. A lot of that's actually the tires more than anything. So the standard model is actually, it's pushy, it understeers, it plows a lot, and the front end feels kind of slow and laggy because of that. But honestly, not bad at all. There we go. So even in sport, the transmission appears to short shift on me for some reason. You know, it's full throttle. I'm not sure why it short shifted into third at like 4,000 RPM, but okie dokie. There, it did it again. Like, I'm full throttle. Why is it short shifting at like 4,000 RPM? Red line's 7,000 on this thing. There, it did the same thing again. It keeps shifting up for some reason. And I have it in, oh my god, the steering is so slow in this thing. Is there a sport? Put it in sport. Okay, it's on sport. I put it in sport mode, see if it does sportier things. There, it just short shifted into third at 4,000 RPM. I'm full throttle. It shifted into fourth gear right there. What the hell? I have it in sport. It's in sport mode. I'm not sure how much sportier I can. There, it did it again. What the hell? Wow, really disappointed in this transmission. I mean, the car itself is fine for an economy car. You know, the V6 engine, it's pretty potent, it sounds pretty good. But yeah, that transmission, wow, what a disaster there. I mean, if you ask for full throttle, you should get full throttle. You shouldn't get short shifted up several. See, I did it again. Should get short shifted up. That's like almost a safety hazard if you need an emergency accelerator, emergency brake, or anything like that. That seems just. Okay, I don't quite get that. Let's do one more. All right, last lap in this thing. I turned traction control off, and it still makes no difference. Great agility there. I'm really impressed with this chassis, even though the spring and damper, the spring rates are obviously very soft. Supposedly the TRD model has 27mm solid sway bars front and rear, which help the roll, as well as stiffer springs. I believe 10% stiffer in the front, 15% stiffer in the rear, which should hopefully help the front to rear handling balance of the car. But honestly, that all seems tertiary compared to this transmission, which does not seem to really understand what's going on here. Granted, it's a Camry, you're never going to autocross it, but still, it's kind of disappointing if you're in a winding back road, the transmission is not going to play ball at all. That's kind of disappointing. All right, let's hop in the TRD and see what goes on. All right, now we are in the Camry TRD back-to-back testing. Okay, now for whatever reason, everything is the same in this car. I have it in sport mode. I have the transmission selector in sport, and it's actually holding the lower gear. It's not short shifting up randomly into third. Okay, so I complained about the sensation of the steering feeling slow and sluggish in this car, and it does actually feel better in this. Now, Toyota has made no changes to the actual steering in this car. It's all a function of the firmer suspension and the wider wheel and tire package, but it does. It makes the car feel sharper. Now, as far as the performance exhaust system, the only real performance engine upgrade, if you want to consider it that, it sounds a bit nicer, but I think it's a subtle change. You know, a V6 engine, it sounds, the 3.5 Toyota V6, it's a pretty good sounding little engine. I think the change this exhaust adds is definitely subtle. So as far as that's concerned, the exhaust is kind of a wash. But the actual suspension changes, the hardware on the chassis side of things is seemingly pretty noticeable. You know, it's kind of like the TRD 86 and the base 86, where it doesn't really add anything as far as engine performance is concerned, but the actual chassis changes do make for a much more competent and enjoyable car. Wow, yeah, this thing is... So it has the same basic characteristics of the standard Camry. It's still going to understeer, but look at that. It plows a lot less. The front end is much firmer, so it resists that roll. And so overall handling balance does seem to be a bit better than the basic car. Though it's worth noting this is still a pretty soft car, all things considered. So it's not like you're losing much in the way of ride and handling from a street performance perspective. But it's a much more enjoyable car to drive. But yeah, I'm really surprised that for whatever reason, Toyota said the powertrain is the same other than the exhaust system, but for whatever reason, this thing is actually holding a lower gear and doing a better job of that by not short shifting me into third. This is actually a notably better car as far as dynamics are concerned. I'm gonna try and hop into this for the road test if they have one available for me, but yeah, initial impressions, very positive. It just seems like a better driving, more cohesive actual sports sedan. Now, an Autocross is all well and good for showing off vehicle dynamics kind of at low speeds, but let's be realistic. If you're one of the 6,000 or so people who ends up getting their hands on a Camry TRD, you're just not gonna take it to an Autocross. Instead, you're going to use it as a daily driver on the road. And now I'm on the road in the real world of Texas at least, kind of in the middle of nowhere driving around. And I want to preface this by saying, immediately before hopping this vehicle, I spent about 15 to 20 minutes driving around the comparable Camry XSE with the same V6 engine, but just the regular production car. So I have a pretty good understanding of the Camry V6 in this terrain, in this route. Fortunately, I have the good news of saying that the TRD option does seem to have little in the way of on-road compromise. Now, the ride quality is a little bit more jiggly, especially over these pretty graded roads outside of rural Texas, but it's not harsh, it's not uncomfortable, it's simply a little bit more connected. If you put most passengers in this vehicle, they probably wouldn't notice any sort of difference, to be quite honest. It's only from behind the driver's seat you really notice the sort of slightly firmer suspension. Now, interestingly, I mentioned in my Autocross portion of this testing that the upgraded exhaust, it was kind of a wash for me. It didn't really make much difference, and I still kind of stick to that. When you're driving the car really hard, kind of at full throttle, there's not necessarily a huge difference in what the car sounds like, kind of what it's doing. Though, around town, when you first kind of take off, you really do notice the additional rumble from the exhaust, especially under 2,000 RPM, which when driving around town is most of the time driving this car. Again, it's never loud or offensive, but they threw in a few extra decibels from the exhaust, and it's never overbearing, but it's just a nice acoustical bit of tuning. It just sounds nicer. Like I mentioned in the Autocross portion of this test, the 3.5 Toyota V6 is just a sweet little engine. Yeah, see up top it basically sounds the same, but down low it just has a little bit more depth, a little more bass to the sound quality. So the ride and handling is not much worse for the wear, and the exhaust, I suppose, is an overall positive. We need to talk about the interior of this vehicle, because when I posted I was driving this car online, the #1 comment I seemed to get was something about the interior of this vehicle. So the TRD Camry gets a black and red motif across the entirety of the vehicle. So there's a black leather shift knob with red stitching, the black and red steering wheel, black and red wrapped dash, and the black and red seats with the red seat belts. It seems like overwhelmingly a lot of people did not like this thing. It was kind of cheesy, but in person, I'm okay with it. I think the red seat belts are a nice touch. They're actually a slightly darker shade of red than a lot of the things in this car, so it comes off as a bit less garish and flashy in person. Additionally, while the black and red color is fine to my eyes, I think it's just the overall shape of the Camry seats that aren't particularly visually appealing. So when you add the black and red trim, it kind of can stand out a little bit if that bothers you. For me, I think it's fine. I think the overall takeaway for me is that if you want to buy a Camry and you care at all about performance, however you want to measure that, whether it's handling dynamics or acceleration or even just sound, you're probably going to want the V6, which makes sense. And Toyota tells me that right now, due to the way the cars are contented, the Camry TRD is actually the cheapest way to get into a V6 Camry. I believe, I'll correct myself in the edit, but I believe it's right around, what, $31,000 for this vehicle starting? And shoot, I mean, if you want the V6, why not get the TRD? I mean, it seems to ride just as nice. It's a little bit firmer on the corners, and I mean, visually, it has the cool wheels and the body kit, and that's a plus for me. I think it looks really cool. That it's basically going to be just as reliable, just as comfortable as a standard Camry. It means there's no real downside to getting it. Yeah, it's a pretty cool car, huh? Pretty quick. So, yeah, if you're interested in a Camry, definitely check out the Camry TRD. Like I mentioned, Toyota says they're planning to produce about 6,000 of these vehicles, roughly. They're not numbered or anything, but that's a rough number they gave us here at this event. It kind of seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, if you want a V6 Camry, just get the TRD. You have a cool-looking car in your driveway, and there's no real downsides. How about that?